Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the video. I'm GetGoodGuy, and today we'll be continuing our reviews of the Weapon Crate Update weapons with the Ribeyrolles 1918 Optical. As with the video I posted yesterday on the blaster pistol looking M1917 Patrol Carbine, which by the way I'll link to in the description and in my pinned comment in case you haven't seen it, this is a pretty early review as the weapon has just been released, so keep that in mind. Also, as stated yesterday, today's video will be focusing upon the basics of the weapon and my opinion more so than usual. This is because Simthic.com, where I usually get my detailed stats from, hasn't yet added the new weapons. However, I can still use the site to some degree to analyze how optical variants usually differ from factory variants. And as the original Ribeyrolles is a factory variant, this seems useful. So, based upon the stats that optical weapons usually have, we can deduce that the new Ribeyrolles Optical likely has better spread than the factory when aiming down sight, and better spread increase per shot. On the negative side of things, it likely has worse recoil decrease than the factory, worse spread decrease, and may also have worse first shot recoil and spread multipliers, although this is a little less certain. So what does this mean? Well, basically the optical will probably give you better spread overall, especially when aiming down sight, but will be a little trickier to use, and tap firing could be less effective than with the factory variant. So it's a bit of a trade-off stats wise based upon your own personal preferences. Obviously, besides all of this, it has the same rate of fire as the factory, standing at 550 rounds per minute, as well as the same range potential. So now, what do I think of the weapon? It's good. Yeah, I'd say it's good. That sounds very blunt, I know, and I guess that's because it's just not exactly my thing. I'm generally not a big fan of optical variants on the whole, and the reasoning for that I guess is for a different video on a different day, but it just doesn't sit right with me. I don't really see what you're gaining from the optical variant when compared with the factory a lot of the time. I guess I understand the stats behind it, as I just explained, but in practice it's just good. Another version of the Ribe factory that to me feels a little more clunky and has an optical sight on it. I guess what I'm saying is that I often don't find the optical sight to offer a benefit. I know this isn't the case for everyone, and some people will likely gel very nicely with this weapon if they like optical sights, but I don't. I struggle to process how it particularly helps anyone to acquire a target more so than just using a factory variant, unless the factory variant has terrible iron sights, I guess. I just find that the optical sights are too big and clunky, and honestly just make it harder for me to aim most of the time, which is essentially the opposite of why you would ultimately choose to use the variant. This makes me sound heavily biased against the weapon, and it's fair to make that point, but this also means there are likely other people out there that feel similarly. I'll put it this way, it makes sense to me that a scope can help someone to pick out a target. It doesn't make sense to me that this clunky thing on top of the weapon, known as an optical sight, can do the same thing. But it isn't just that. The optical variant feels harder to use in my opinion, perhaps down to worse recoil decrease. I just find it more difficult to land shots. Sure, the supposed better spread is a great bonus to have, but if you're struggling to hit the target more so than with the factory, then it's kinda negated. Again, this won't be an issue though for people who'd like optical variants, so keep that in mind. Besides these points, the Ribe Optical has a bipod, just like the factory variant, and as ever, this makes the weapon a whole lot more steady. Having a bipod option is always a good thing, and increases your lethality at range for obvious reasons, but you will still have to deal with issues such as in this clip, as the bipod either won't place, or sometimes just detaches during usage for seemingly no reason, forcing you to then make do without it. And don't be fooled by your usage of bipods on medic and support weapons. You've likely been conditioned by those to expect a very quick kill from using a bipod, but you're using an assault weapon, and it can truly feel like it takes a lot of bullets to put the enemy down at range sometimes. And so, with all of that said, I think some of you will really like this weapon, and some won't. I know that isn't overly helpful, but it's just the reality of it today. It's good, but not great in my opinion, and I don't really see what gap it's supposed to fill in the game. It's obviously a good range option for assault, and many of you will enjoy it for that, but I'll likely stick with the factory variant most of the time, even for wider open maps. It just feels better to me. But this is all just my opinion. What do you think? Are you excited about the Ribeyrolles 1918 Optical, or do you think you'll be sticking with the factory variant? Let me know in the comment section below. Now let's go over to the Board of Awesome for the fantastic people who allow you to get content from me full time by supporting the channel on Patreon. I just wouldn't have the time to upload this regularly without them, as I'd need to find another revenue stream. So thank you to everyone on here for simply making this possible. If you want to join them on the Board of Awesome, then the link to the Patreon page is in the description and in my pinned comment. I hope you enjoyed the video. Remember to turn on post notifications notifications with the bell button so you don't miss future videos, including the other Weapon Crate update reviews, and feel free to like, share, and subscribe. I'm GetGoodGuy and I'll see you next time. Laters.